Okay, and the hardest one for last. Let's simplify this again. Let's step back for a second and talk about what is pluperfect. That is a fancy word to say present perfect or past perfect. Um, I'm sorry, past perfect, subjunctive, not present perfect. So past perfect. And in this case, we're talking about the subjunctive. All right, so this is where, if you have forgotten what a perfect verb tense is, like the present perfect or past perfect, let's take this aside for a second and make a nice white blank space here that we can write on. Let's just back up and talk about present perfect and past perfect before we talk about pluperfect, subjunctive. We're just talking about indicative here. Present perfect and past perfect, they both had the verb haber and then a participle. Okay, the key here is that in all perfect tenses, you are going to have this component of haber plus a participle. Haber is what is going to change in each one of these. If it's present perfect, past perfect, and those are indicating the indicative, because they don't say subjunctive. Regardless, haber is going to be the only thing that changes in all of the perfect forms, all of the perfect verbs, whether it's present perfect, past perfect, or past perfect subjunctive. So let's go back to the indicative and talk about how we formed that. Haber is the only thing that's going to change. So this might jog your memory. Has, hemos. I don't even remember that one. I always have to refresh my memory for vosotros because I didn't study in Spain. I lived in Mexico and they don't use the vosotros. So y'all are ahead of me if you've memorized that. I always have to refresh my memory. So hopefully you know that though, as it has been taught to you. So asa, hemos, an. I'm guessing it's ice there. And then the past perfect was había, habías, había, habíamos, habíais, and habían. That's the vosotros there again. I'll just skip that in case I write it incorrectly. I don't want to give you incorrect information and I didn't review it before I did the video. So both of these, that's just the haber part. Now we have to have a participle after it. And there were a couple irregulars on that one. But let's start with some regulars like ab, ado. So an AR verb, we drop the AR and we add ado. Com, that's an O. We drop the ER and we add ido. Vive, we drop the IR, we add ido. That's the basic regular participles. Then we had some that were irregular, like escribir, just off the top of my head, escrito. Hacer was hecho. Ask me how many times I made an error on that in Mexico, those two, over and over and over. But you can do a simple Google search and just look up irregular participles in Spanish, and I'll give you a whole big long list of those. Those are just two off the top of my head. So again, every time you're talking about a perfect verb tense, you're going to have two components. Haber is going to conjugate, and then the participle. The participle will not change depending on the verb tense. It's going to stay the same for all of them. So you're going to have these whether it's present perfect or past perfect. So it's he hablado or había hablado. He escrito, había escrito. I have written, I had written, right? And I forgot to say that. Remember, this is I have or he has done such and such. And this one was I had or they had done such and such. All right. So now that we refreshed our memories on the indicative, let's go back to the pluperfect subjunctive. Okay. Big, long, fancy word just to say if I had, so this is past, the past tense, right? Plu is referring to the imperfect, the past. So not present tense. If I had done such and such, I would have gotten is actually the correct I'm pretty sure that's incorrect grammar that they have here. I would have gotten better grades. I'm pretty sure. Maybe I've just learned it wrong, but I'm just looking at, oops, that doesn't sound right. If I had done, so had done, would have done such and such. So again, it says contrary to past facts because it wasn't done. So it's saying if this opposite thing had been done, opposite to what was done. So if I had spoken, meaning I didn't do it, but if I had, so it's contrary to past facts. Just be careful here. The pluperfect means that we have the participle. It's a past participle in the subjunctive. So again, like I just said in the previous slide when we were doing the indicative, we're going to have aber plus my participle. And what did I say about my participle? Is that going to conjugate or change at all? No, my participle will be the same no matter what verb tense I'm doing. Is aber going to change? Absolutely. Aber has to change into the pluperfect. Subjunctive, how do we change that? It changes to this, hubiera. You can probably figure out the rest of them. So hubiera, hubieras would be the next one. And then leía usted, hubiera, hubiéramos, hubieran. Notice that ending should look familiar to you as the subjunctive. The iera, ieran, right? That's the subjunctive that we've practiced before. It's just now we have to put the participle with it. So we have aber in the past, subjunctive, and then we have to put the participle. So there's your participle. You have a verb clause here because it's a perfect. Notice the perfect means that we're going to have aber plus a participle. Anytime you see perfect, it means we have the participle and then aber before it. In this case, we have the past subjunctive of aber. The past subjunctive of aber is right there. Your participle doesn't change. Okay? Then in the result clause here, we have past conditional. Okay, so past conditional means we have to also take aber and put it into the conditional and then put the participle. So what is the past of aber, past conditional of aber? Abría, abrías, abría, leía usted. What's next? Abríamos, abrían. Okay, does the participle change? That's an A. Does the participle change? Nope. I've said it, I think 4 times now. The participle stays the same regardless of what verb clause it is. Aber conjugates depending on which verb it is, but the participle does not change. So now we have abría, abría, oops, I missed my R there. Abríamos, abrían, plus my participle. And that is the past conditional. Okay. So let's do a couple. Let's see. Let's go ahead and read this before we do a couple examples. Sometimes when the result clause refers to something still valid in the present or to a general statement, the past conditional, this one right here, can just be used with the conditional. Let's see how that sounds. So they took, let's see, up here she says, if I had studied more, I would have gotten better grades. This one, let's do it with just the conditional instead of past conditional. Let's use a simple conditional. If I had studied more, now I would have a better job. They put now at the end. I would have a better job now if I had studied more. So had studied stayed the same because it was in the subjunctive. Si hubiera estudiado stays the same. The difference is I would have now in the present tense. I would have now in the present tense a better job. This one here, I would have gotten better grades, refers to the past. it would have happened in the past that I had gotten better notes. I would have gotten better grades, right? So do we see how this is the past? I would have gotten in the past better grades versus I would have better grades now, referring to the present. So they're saying you can use the conditional tense, the simple conditional here, if this action is still in the present. We use the past conditional tense here if that action was in the past. Okay, let's do a couple examples. Can you think of any of your own? Let's go over here. So we're using the pluperfect subjunctive plus past conditional. So again, maybe it's easier if you just write the translation in English. If I had done such and such, I would have done such and such. Okay, so we're filling in the first blank. This is one, and the second, well, this is all one blank together, and this is the second one. So I want you to put in a pluperfect subjunctive in the first clause and a past conditional in the second clause. I'm going to go ahead and do one while you're writing your own. You can pause the video. Remember, we have to, it's a perfect tense, so we have to have hubiera, we have to have haber. Oops, I made a mistake already. Okay, unpause the video, of course, and then you should be up with me. This is what I came up with. If I had gone, irregular participle, hubiera is in the past subjunctive. If I had gone to Spain, I would, conditional, past conditional, I would have learned vosotros. So conditional habría, and again, my participle doesn't change. It still ends with ido, right? What did you come up with? Do you have past perfect subjunctive plus conditional, past conditional? Okay, can you come up with a sentence that talks about in the present tense, if I had done something in the past tense, then right now I would do such and such? Pause the video and see if you can come up with one. Okay, so what I came up with, again, here we're going to use the past perfect subjunctive. I don't know why it keeps doing it does automatic shapes. And then my conditional, present conditional instead of my past conditional. If I had studied, notice my participle stays the same. And it's the present past, I'm sorry, perfect. It's the past perfect, which means I have haber plus my participle. If I had studied music, I would be simple conditional teacher of music now instead of Spanish. So sería conditional simple tense, okay? All right, feel free to share with me what you came up with to see if you did it correctly. You can email them to me or get together with me for a meeting. Let's see, last note that they have, however, in spoken Spanish, the past conditional or the simple conditional are often replaced by the pluperfect subjunctive for this kind of hypothetical clause. The resulting structure would be, in such cases, a sentence containing two pluperfect subjunctive verbs. So what they're saying is if I had told you that I do not speak English, you would have. So if I had done this, you would have. It could be the same person. If I had done such and such, I would have done such and such. Let's change our sentence to reflect what they're saying here. We have two past perfect subjunctive verbs. Let me look. You would have fired. Let's just keep it right here. It'll be easier. Sorry. Hope you're not dizzy yet. I didn't think of an example for this one. So it's if I had studied, I would would have passed the class. So had studied and have passed. So what they do here, it's not a direct translation. Si hubiera estudiado, hubiera pasado or aprobado la clase. Okay. This sounds conditional. I would have, but it's actually still in the past perfect subjunctive. Okay. So again, I'm not going to try to rephrase what they said. Let's just reread what they, in spoken Spanish. Okay, no, in spoken Spanish, the past conditional or the simple conditional, that's what we had practiced putting right here, can often be replaced with the past perfect subjunctive. So instead of using past perfect, remember way up here, it was on a different slide. Remember how we had the very first one? Close your eyes for a second. I'll slide back over to it. It's way over here. Remember the first one? We had, nope, that wasn't it. Let me find what I was going to refer back to. This one. We had conditional and past conditional with the past subjunctive. Okay, I don't want to redo the whole video, and I just didn't read that last one to prepare. Okay, let's go back. Oh, I'm sorry, right here. So instead of using the past conditional or the simple conditional, I'm sorry. So we can have the past subjunctive with the past conditional. We can have the past subjunctive with the simple conditional, right? But what they do in spoken Spanish is instead of using either the past conditional nor the simple conditional, they will also repeat the past subjunctive, okay? What I want to clarify here is that in spoken Spanish, it's a lot more flexible than in formal grammatical Spanish. So there's something they're called academic Spanish, and then there's the spoken Spanish. And what everything that we did up until here on this last example is about academic Spanish. This last part right here is like where we say, if I were a millionaire and somebody looks at you weird, they're like, why is she speaking so like incorrect grammar or so formal, right? And it sounds funny to us, even though it's actually correct grammar. That's the same thing here that they're doing. They will actually use the past perfect subjunctive and the past perfect subjunctive to mean the past conditional. I would have passed as the past conditional, but they've used the past subjunctive instead. And that is accepted when spoken as grammatically correct. Just like as if we were to say, I just used subjunctive there, as if I were to say, if I were a millionaire, right? And you would say, that sounds weird to me. But if I said, if I was, that's it's spoken, acceptable spoken English. So that's kind of that's a good analogy here that we're comparing to in English. Written, that would not be correct, quote unquote, grammar, but spoken grammar is much more flexible than written academic Spanish. So it is considered technically okay to say that with two past subjunctive phrases. to imply the past conditional. However, on a written formal grammar test, we would want to stick with these. There's lots of writing all over here. I apologize. I do have an eraser somewhere on here, but we want to stick with the past perfect subjunctive with the past conditional, or with the simple conditional like we used up here. Okay, this one, I know you're like, more arrows, great. Or this one with the simple conditional. Okay, so that's hopefully a little bit more clarified. Those were unpracticed, unrehearsed videos, but I wanted to get those out to you and see if they help you at all. In summary, you really have to know, what are they talking about when they say past perfect subjunctive? You need to know what they're talking about when they say past subjunctive, not past perfect, but past subjunctive. You need to know what they're talking about when they say present indicative. Okay, so what are all those, and how do I conjugate those verbs? And especially when we get to perfect tenses, remember we have to have aber plus a participle, so there's even more conjugating that needs to happen there. Okay, hopefully this helps clarify those. Let me know if you need more help. And all of these resources were taken from, it was from grammar.spanishinTexas.org, so that I can give them credit where credit is due. All right, let me know if you need any help.